Good morning, everybody. I call this hearing to order. I request unanimous consent that the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. Hearing no objections, so ordered. Without objection, members will be recognized in order of committee seniority for questioning witnesses today. This will make it easier for me to ensure all members participating have an opportunity to be recognized. I want to welcome everyone to this morning's Economic Opportunity Subcommittee hearing, where we're addressing supporting servicewomen in their transition from military to civilian life. I especially want to welcome our witnesses from Lady Veterans Connect and Women's Veterans Interactive, each of whom are testifying for the first time. I appreciate your dedication to women veterans and look forward to hearing about your expertise in helping them address the many challenges that come with the transition process. While the need to support transitioning veterans has existed in some capacity since the colonial times, the Military Transition Assistance Program, as we know it, wasn't established until 1991. Around this time, there was an identified need to help ease the transition to civilian life of those who had been involuntarily separated due to force structure drawdowns of the 1980s. So Congress passed TAP as part of the National Defense Authorization Act. Well, my intent is not to give a history lesson. I want to highlight the fact that the government established the Transition Assistance Program after identifying an emerging trend of veterans struggling to transition. This effort to aid transitioning service members in a way that complements emerging challenges and trends must continue. It's about time we dedicate our efforts to support the fastest growing veteran population, and that is women. Though they don't always receive the recognition they deserve, women have served alongside men in all of our nation's wars. A notable example is Deborah Sampson, who disguised herself as a man in order to serve during the American Revolution. Women are committed to serve, and their drive to serve their country can be seen in the data that reflects their increased participation in all branches of the military. Although not allowed to serve until 1948, 3 years after World War II ended, it's believed that 25,000 women served in World War I and 319,000 served in World War II, or approximately 2.1% of the military population. By 2018, 16.5% of our uniformed fighting force was comprised of women. Despite the history of women's service and trends that indicate an increase of women serving their country, we as a government have continually lagged behind in addressing their unique needs. For example, the government didn't have the authority to provide gender-specific services and programs for women veterans until the passing of the Veteran Health Care Act of 1992. Even if we only account for the time women were officially allowed to serve in the military, it took 44 years to establish a gender-specific program. The good news is we're catching up. This includes the establishment of VA's Center for Women Veterans in 1994, the Women's Health Program Office in 1997, and the Women's Health Transition Training in 2018. But our work must not stop here. Just as the challenges that transitioning servicewomen and women veterans face are ever evolving, we too must continue to evolve in our efforts to meet the unique needs of women veterans. Addressing these needs requires playing a more proactive role in getting ahead of the emerging challenges, helping our future veterans before they transition, and continually improving transition resources. So today we'll discuss programs that help servicewomen prepare for transition while they're still serving, facilitate the transition from military to civilian life, and support women veterans who have already transitioned. Local and national service organizations that help servicewomen and women veterans through this transition will provide their expertise and discuss what they're seeing in real time on the ground. We'll also hear from 3 federal agencies: the Department of Defense, the Department of Labor, Veterans Employment and Training Service, and the Department of Veterans Affairs, which run the Transition Assistance Program and provide other supports to servicewomen throughout the transition process. I hope to hear today about how they're using the current TAP program to collect data and identify emerging trends regarding the issues all transitioning service members, but especially women, are facing. We'll also discuss what's being done to ensure the government is at the forefront of supporting transitioning servicewomen with the emerging challenges they uniquely face. I look forward to hearing how the agencies plan to continually update TAP and other programs to address these challenges and take a proactive role in preparing servicewomen for life after the military. All service members will eventually become veterans, so it's our responsibility to ensure they are best prepared for this transition. We have a lot to cover today, so I'll conclude my comments and recognize Ranking Member Moore for any opening remarks he may wish to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for recognizing me and for holding this important hearing today. I look forward to being able to host you in my district and hold an in-person field hearing in Enterprise, Alabama in 3 days. I also look forward to our upcoming field hearing in San Diego and holding an in-person hearing there as well. The purpose of today's hearing is to not only conduct oversight over the Transition Assistance Program, but to ensure that TAPS is empowering our nation's servicewomen to have a successful transition from military to civilian life. To begin, I think we should first and foremost acknowledge that America's servicewomen work every day to defend our nation, and we should treat them and their male counterparts equally. Second, Congress wants to do all we can do to ensure that we honor this service by providing women veterans access to the best health care anywhere in the world and ensure a prompt delivery of the benefits and services that they have earned and are entitled to. The first step in achieving this goal is ensuring that they have a smooth and successful transition from the military to civilian life. I've said this before and I will say it again. An ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And we know that TAP is 100% about prevention. I'm confident that if we get TAP and a larger transition right for the 200,000 service members leaving the military every year, we can mitigate challenges that may come up later in the service member's life. We know that today, on average, it takes women veterans 2.7 years from separation or the manifestation of illness to finally enroll in VA healthcare. We must do all we can do to eliminate this number and immediately get these veterans the care they need. I'm interested to hear today about how TAP is or is not meeting the unique needs of servicewomen and what else we can do to improve the delivery of this training. While we should never discriminate in the services that are provided to women veterans, the numbers continue to show that there's a need to be laser focused on their care. We know that women veteran population has grown by 62% between 2001 and 2015. We also know that age-adjusted suicide rate of women veterans is almost 2 times higher than the suicide rate for civilian women. Women veterans also have a higher rate of depression at 25% than non-veteran women at 21.6%. These are just some of the types of challenges that TAP and other programs must work to mitigate. I know that the Isaacson Roe Omnibus that was enacted at the end of the last Congress fully authorized Women's Health Transition Pilot Program. This authorization codified the successful pilot program first implemented under the Trump administration. This program provides detailed information to transitioning servicewomen about the VA healthcare options to which they are entitled. I want to know more about how well this program is working and if any additional changes need to be made to improve the outcomes. I look forward to a constructive discussion today, and with that, I yield back.
Well, I thank the ranking member, and I'm excited to visit you in your district. Hopefully the schedule works out for us with voting and so forth a little better than it did with your planned visit to San Diego. But nonetheless, we're going to get both of those field hearings done, and I'm excited for them. I'd now like to welcome my dear friend, Congresswoman Julia Brownley, the chairwoman of our Health Subcommittee, to our hearing today. Chairwoman Brownley is a tremendous advocate for women veterans, and I'm very grateful for her partnership on this committee. And with that, I now recognize Chairwoman Brownley for any opening remarks she may wish to make.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to everyone. I really thank you, Chairman Levin and Ranking Member Moore, for holding this very important hearing and for allowing me the opportunity to participate. As chair of the Health Subcommittee on the Veteran Affairs Committee, I've been extremely focused on ensuring that our women veterans can seek the care and benefits they have earned at a VA that welcomes them on an equal footing with their fellow veterans. Transition from the military to civilian life is already a complex and stressful process, and women often face unique challenges relating to accessing healthcare and benefits that can compound this stress. 1 in 4 women serving in the military reports being sexually assaulted or harassed. And very sadly, the statistic is similar for women veterans who seek care at VA facilities, often for the very trauma they experience during their service. We know so many of our women veterans suffer from post-traumatic stress related to military sexual trauma and other in-service experiences. These traumatic experiences put women at an increased risk of mental health conditions, substance abuse disorders, and homelessness. Child care and being a caregiver are factors that contribute to additional stress during service, and these stressors intensify and accompany servicewomen during their transition to life as a veteran. To honor our service women and women veterans, we must recognize in a very honest way the unique challenges and inequities they face. As one of our witnesses said, and we will hear from her in the second panel, too many women come to their transition exhausted, mentally broken, physically depleted, and in need of a lifeline. We owe it to our women veterans to spare no effort or expense. And I believe step one is to acknowledge, and again, to acknowledge in a very honest way the unique needs of women. And step two is simply to take action. I believe no more surveys, no more pilot programs that seem to never scale up, no more research. All we need to do now is action. The witnesses today are telling us what our women veterans need. And all we need to do is to listen and listen to their recommendations and to turn those recommendations into law. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the opportunity. I look forward to the hearing and hearing from all of our witnesses. And with that, I yield back.
Well, thank you, Chairwoman Brownlee, for that great statement and for your leadership. And we're obviously looking forward to working closely with you. Our first panel today consists of federal agencies. First, testifying for the Department of Defense is Mr. William Mansell, Director of the Defense Support Service Center. Next, testifying for the Department of Labor, we have Ms. Margarita Devlin, Deputy Assistant Secretary, Veterans Employment and Training Services. And finally, testifying for the Department of Veterans Affairs, we have Ms. Lourdes Tiglau, Director of the Center for Women Veterans. Ms. Tiglau is accompanied by Dr. Laurencia Pierce, Deputy Director for Outreach, Transition, and Economic Development at VA. I want to welcome you all and thank you all so much for joining us today. With that, I'll now recognize Mr. William Mansell for 5 minutes.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to appear today. Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you virtually, along with my colleagues from the Department of Labor and the Department of Veterans Affairs. Like you, we remain steadfast in our commitment to the well-being and continued success of our service members and veterans as they transition to civilian life. The welfare of our women service members is of specific concern to us, as this population has historically had greater unemployment and increased healthcare issues post-transition. Through constant collaboration by the interagency governance structure within the Transition Assistance Program, commonly referred to as TAP, the interagency partners work diligently to continue to identify and mitigate issues and concerns of women service members during the transition to becoming a veteran and beyond. The TAP interagency governance structure is a governing body comprised of representatives from 7 key federal agencies. The purpose of this governance structure is to oversee and monitor interagency coordination and collaboration to ensure the TAP, its products, delivery of services, and messages are consistent and synchronized. As a result of the National Defense Authorization Acts of 1991, 2011, and 2019, TAP has evolved from a single voluntary course into a required, robust program rich with alternate pathways and multiple levels of assistance, serving approximately 200,000 service members annually. Anecdotal reporting indicates that transitioning out of the military is a very personal endeavor where no two situations are alike. Likewise, there's no rank, age, or gender that guarantees a successful transition. Success lies with service members actively engaging in their transition and utilizing the TAP process and resources provided. This anecdotal evidence reinforces the importance of having the ability and flexibility to tailor TAP to meet the needs of all participants, regardless of their background, situation, or gender. Individualization of the TAP process begins with a self-assessment that the service member is mandated to complete 365 days prior to separation or retirement. Once completed, the service member meets with a trained counselor who specializes in transition and employment. This meeting results in the service member understanding her TAP pathway and the steps necessary to be successful in transition. Beyond the ability to individualize TAP, the department, in collaboration with VA, developed a specific program to support women as they transition out of the military. The Women's Health Transition Training Program was initiated by the VA and the Air Force in 2018. This course is designed to meet the specific needs of women transitioning from military healthcare into VA healthcare. Collaboration continues between the interagency partners by the sharing of information and data. One such tool utilizes the Transition Assistance Curriculum Participant Assessment. Comments and data from the participant assessment are shared, analyzed, and utilized to monitor ongoing concerns, as well as to identify new or emerging concerns surrounding TAP. Individuals are encouraged to complete this voluntarily. Anonymous assessment multiple times throughout the program. Analysis of the responses provides an evaluation of TAP, the perception of TAP, and the quality of the counseling and instruction provided. The results of the participant assessment, which were detailed in the 2021 annual report to Congress and the written statement for this hearing, show an overwhelming majority of women responded favorably to their experiences in TAP. Women indicated higher satisfaction in accessing relevant resources and classroom facilities than their male counterparts. Female service members also indicated the program helped them gain information and skills necessary for their transition, as well as enhance their confidence in their ability to plan for transition, increase their ability to use program information, and that the program prepared them to meet their post-transition goals. So in conclusion, supporting our warfighters and their families as they navigate the process of transition into civilian life has been and remains a top priority for the Department of Defense. The ability to tailor transition support to the individual is crucial and allows for a more personalized experience that meets the needs of the transitioning service member, regardless of gender or situation. To continue to improve our program and ensure success among our service members, we must maintain the strong collaboration with our interagency partners, the support and hard work of our military departments, and collaboration with other external stakeholders, as well as your support, the members of Congress. So in closing, Mr. Chairman, I thank you, I thank the ranking member and the members of this subcommittee for your outstanding and continued support of the men and women who proudly wear the uniform in defense of our great nation. I look forward to your questions, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mansell. I'll now turn to Ms. Devlin. It's nice to see you again. Ms. Devlin, thanks for being here today. And you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
It's nice to see you again as well. Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, distinguished members of the subcommittee, on behalf of the Department of Labor, I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear today to discuss the programs and resources provided by Department of Labor's Veterans Employment and Training Service in support of servicewomen transitioning to civilian life. I'm truly honored to be before you, and I'm encouraged by the work this committee does on behalf of our nation's veterans. At VETS, our vision is to enable all veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses to reach their full potential in the workplace. Our top priorities are getting the military to civilian transition right, leveraging the right strategic partnerships to maximize employment outcomes, and advancing equity and inclusion in our underserved veteran communities. VETS is the agency responsible for the portion of the Transition Assistance Program, or TAP, focused on post-military civilian employment. Between March 1st, 2020 and September 30th, 2021, more than 242,000 transitioning service members and their spouses attended DOL's TAP workshops. Women service members made up nearly 34,000 of the participants during that time period. Through the Jobs for Veterans State Grants, or JVSG, DOL also assists veterans with significant barriers to employment and other eligible individuals through a nationwide network of nearly 2,400 one-stop job centers referred to as American Job Centers, or AJCs. Last year, more than 3.2 million Americans, including over 203,000 veterans, of which over 31,000 were women, received staff-assisted employment assistance at an AJC. VETS also administers the Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program to address the employment needs of one of the most vulnerable populations of veterans, those who are experiencing homelessness or are at risk of it. In performance year 2020, HVRP placed 59% of women participants in employment with no gender wage gap. Of over 14,500 veterans served, 11% were women. At VETS, we are well aware that no federal agency can operate alone in this ecosystem. I'm really impressed with the integration and partnerships that VETS has established and continues to develop at the federal, local, state, and national levels. VETS partners with DoD, VA, Small Business Administration, Office of Personnel Management, and the Department of Education to administer the TAP program. One recent example of VETS leveraging formal partnerships is the Employment Navigator and Partnership Pilot that provides one-on-one career assistance to transitioning service members and their spouses at select military installations worldwide. VETS signed memoranda of understanding with 9 organizations that have agreed to serve as partners in support of this program. Partner organizations support include apprenticeship, hiring events, digital skill matching, mentorship, networking, employment referrals, job placement, workforce training, and wraparound services. Since the inception of the pilot, 17.9% of these participants have been servicewomen. The impacts of COVID-19 pandemic have been particularly hard on working women. One reason for this is the closure of schools and daycares, which kept children at home. Mothers continue to provide the majority of childcare, and women are less likely than men to be in jobs that allow telework. To build back better, VETS is taking a proactive approach by reaching out to underserved veteran communities, such as LGBTQ veterans, veterans of color, and women veterans who have not traditionally interacted with DOL and other segments of the federal government at the same rate as other veteran communities. By engaging with new partners, we will increase awareness of VETS programs and work towards removing barriers to equitable access. I'm honored to be part of the VETS team, and while excellent work has been done to support transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses, we recognize there's always more work to do. And we are consistently reviewing our programs to determine areas where we can improve our customers' experience and employment outcomes. We're committed to assisting women veterans, as with all veterans, to enable them to reach their full potential in the workplace. And as the lead federal agency on veteran employment, VETS looks forward to working with this committee and our many partners and stakeholders to continue providing support so that all veterans can have a good job and an opportunity for advancement. I want to thank the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Ms. Devlin. I now recognize Ms. Tiglau for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, Chairwoman Brownlee, and esteemed members of the subcommittee. We appreciate the opportunity to testify on VA's critical participation in the whole of government approach supporting transitioning service women. Joining me today is Dr. Laurentia Pierce, Deputy Director, Office of Outreach, Transition, and Economic Development at the Veterans Benefits Administration. On behalf of Secretary McDonough and the department, we'd like to thank you for your continued support to our nation's veterans and transitioning service women. Before I continue, I want to touch on an evolving crisis. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed global and US supply chain weaknesses, and we expect the manufacturing and distribution disruptions to continue for some time. The virus spread affected everything, decreasing overall consumer demand, causing reductions in industrial activity. With increasing global vaccination levels and many nations ending lockdowns, consumer demand dramatically has increased, but supply chains still face big challenges, including worker shortages and limited access to raw materials and key components. VA actively addresses these challenges through near-term methods implementation to ensure internal VA supply chain resiliency. They include increased demand signal monitoring, preferred product alternatives identification, and treating medical products as enterprise assets. Effective national response requires a resilient public health supply chain anchored in domestic manufacturing capabilities so patients receive effective care and preventative measures. Supply chain sustainability is critical for ensuring the health and wellness of the nation as well as national security. So VA is working to develop and implement actions identified in the national strategy for a resilient public health supply chain with the White House and executive branch agencies, working together to deliver services to our nation's veterans. With women being the fastest growing segment of the veteran population, Women veteran users have increased by almost 52% since 2008. VA continues to prioritize women through the Center for Women Veterans, an integrator of VA enterprise benefits and services, and a portal to interagency and community resource support. Serving as an advocate for internal and external cultural transformation, we do engage in a comprehensive outreach approach, including monthly partner meetings, active social media and in-person campaigns, and bringing thought leaders, veterans and NGOs, and others together to address issues relevant to women veterans. To shift the internal and external culture, CWV highlights fluence contributions and normalizes the perspective that women served honorably so women can feel safe and proud in owning their space and service to our nation's veterans. As a veterans, CWV collaborates with internal and external partners to facilitate a positive journey and VA experience for women veterans and transitioning service women. VA enjoys a long-standing partnership by maintaining the TAP governance structure through a memorandum of agreement between VA, DoD, DOL, DHS, SBA, and OPM. Various partners collaborate alongside organizations with programs, missions, and initiatives for service women. Recognizing that no two transitions are the same, VA implemented one-on-one assistance with TAP VA benefits advisors to provide personalized experiences to answer questions, explain benefits, and provide connections to resources during any stage of the military life cycle. VA strives to be agile with changing environments, so during the pandemic, our advisors have provided remote one-on-one assistance by phone or email when preferred. Furthermore, the VA Benefits and Services course, or VA TAP curriculum, can also be personalized to an individual service member's transition journey. The course has received an overall satisfaction rate of over 95% from the 7,200 service members who have participated this year. As part of VA's focus on women's unique needs, VA also established a women's health transition training as an elective curriculum focusing on women's specific topics, designed to complement the VA TAP curriculum. Available anytime and any place, it's open to all service women and women veterans, regardless of separation date. The Center for Women Veterans employs ongoing engagement and feedback from women veterans, their families, and caregivers to explore new ways to deliver better services. In response to the 2021 NDAA in partnership with DOL, we're conducting research to determine why post-9/11 women veterans experience higher unemployment rates than their previous era, male and non-veteran counterparts. CWV will go beyond NDAA requirements by incorporating policy recommendations based on the results. The report will be delivered to Congress in June 2022. VA is committed to service women and women veterans on all fronts, including on advocacy and awareness, stakeholder engagement, and on a forward-thinking posture through research. VA looks at our service women and women veterans not as beneficiaries, but as potential leaders in their communities. VA is committed to empowering them to become those leaders in their unique lives, within their families, and within their communities. Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. Dr. Pierce and I are happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Tiglau. With that, I'd like to recognize myself for 5 minutes, begin the question portion of the hearing. Mr. Mansell, I'll start with you. Thanks for joining us today. It's absolutely critical that the Department of Defense and service leadership at every level is fully invested in the long-term success with service members. Leaders must foster a culture that supports service members in preparing for their transition. How does DoD encourage commanding officers to prioritize effective transition for service members?
Thank you for that question, sir. DoD has a robust interagency process that I've talked about briefly in my opening comments and in the written comments as well. And in that interagency process, the military departments also participate. Each department has its own culture, but that culture is leveraged in the individual self-assessments that the service members do. And that individual self-assessment is very important to the whole process. So how does the department encourage commanders? Through communication, through performance management, and through the interagency process. I believe that the commanders understand, because of their role in the capstone process, that they play a very critical part in assisting service members, particularly female service members, because they are the ones that have to determine if a warm handover is needed, or if a service member has really met all the requirements in the career readiness standards to transition. So it is that commander that really plays a critical role. And the commanders are aware of that. I believe they take it very seriously, and they get it done correctly.
Thank you for that. How does DoD ensure that those officers, most of whom have never transitioned themselves, have the information they need to adequately support those in their ranks and accurately attest whether their members are prepared for transition?
Well, there is a transition assistance process that a service member goes through, and that process is known and communicated throughout the Department of Defense. And if you would like, I could take a minute to talk about that process if you would like, Mr. Chairman.
If it's a brief minute.
I'll be very brief, sir. So the process starts with a self-assessment by the service member, which I talked about earlier. It's followed by individual counseling, where the service member starts to work on an individual transition plan and they start completion of their DD Form 2648. At this time, that's when they meet the transition counselor. And in respect to what Representative Brownlee said, when they meet with their transition counselors, they come there, and if they are depressed, spent, worn out, depressed, concerned about their future, one of the things that that counselor is supposed to do is to make that service member, that female, particularly that female service member, feel good about herself and understand that that they could have challenges, and to help them address those challenges, and just to be honest and to admit that there is a challenge, so that you can then establish goals that you can work towards as you go through the transition process. So that's important as well. After that's done, the next step is a pre-transition counseling briefing, where the service member receives various services, benefits, and resources available during and after their transition. Then there's 5 mandatory courses that they have to go through, 3 from DOD, 1 from VA, 1 from DOL. Once that's done, the service member then has the opportunity to attend track courses, which provide additional information, employment, education, vocational entrepreneurship. Once that's done, then we go back to that to the capstone process. That's where it's critical, because at that particular time, the commander sits down with the soldier or with the service member, and they actually look through the 2648, the documents, what that service member has done. At that particular time, after the service member is done, the service member is either referred for warm handover to additional specific services if needed, or if they're really fit for a transition, that the commander approves them to transition. So the commander's
Mr. Mansell, I'm gonna have to cut you off there because, but I thank you for that. I want to get to Ms. Devlin. Ms. Devlin, you noted in your testimony that DOL Vets is implementing the off-base transition training program as directed in the Isaacson-Rowe Act, which I was proud to champion. Off-base training gives newly separated veterans and their families more time to access resources and digest the information provided to them, all while living in their new community. And this is it's a personally important program to me. Can you provide a detailed timeline for implementation?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. We've progressed quite a bit in the implementation planning for off-base transition training. In the 5 states that we're going to be prototyping the pilot, we are almost done with the curriculum, and the curriculum will be ready in January. We are in the process of working with leaders in those states, including the state departments of Veterans Affairs, the adjutant generals, the American Job Centers, to identify classroom locations in those states, in the communities where we have a high number of veterans. Once we identify those classrooms, there will be a sign-up process so that veterans can actually start signing up to sit into the classes. So with the curriculum being ready in January, assuming we get these classroom locations identified by then as well, we should be well into implementation in the next quarter of the fiscal year.
And what are those 5 states, Ms. Devlin?
So we've got California, Texas, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts.
Terrific. All right. Well, we'll look forward to following up with you and your team as this gets rolled out. And I know my friend, Mr. Arrington from Texas, is very excited about this one as well. So I'll be sure to convey all this to him. With that, I'm out of time for now. I will recognize the ranking member for his questions. Ranking Member Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had to unmute there. Mr. Glad, I'm going to ask you a question real quick, if you don't mind. Can you tell us if there are plans for the Women's Healthcare Transition Training Program to be offered in person?
Thank you so much for the question, Congressman Moore. I would like to defer for this question actually to my colleague, Dr. Laresha Pierce, who is our subject matter expert, particularly for this program.
you so much, ma'am, and thank you for the question, sir. So the women's health transition training right now is it is online. There are plans in FY22 to make an instructor-led, virtual instructor-led, which is also the platform that we're utilizing for service members post-COVID. That instructor-led virtual platform will be the equivalent of in-person. They will get the exact same curriculum that they would in person, but it allows for flexibility for our women veterans, which is the feedback that we've received from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. A follow-up to that, and I don't know, it's probably better for you to answer maybe, but how do the service members find out about the program, and what does the VA do currently to promote it?
Yes, thank you for that question. So what we do right now, we work with the Center for Women Veteran, of course, and our interagency partners within the TAP governance structure, that's DOD, DOL, to ensure that the information about the Women's Health Transitioning Training Program is out there. And we also coordinate with our community partners. We have put together a very strategic comms plan to target and make sure that service women, regardless of their separation date, is aware of this wonderful opportunity to learn about VHA healthcare and the services that they have earned with regards to support around MST, suicide prevention, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Glau, I also want to ask a question, and this may be for either you or Dr. Pierce. While I am pleased that 54% of the service members enroll in the VA healthcare after attending the Women's Healthcare Transition Training Program, do we know why the remaining 46% of the participants do not enroll in the VA healthcare follow-up program?
I'll take that. Thank you for that question. We are always engaging our transitioning service women and women veterans. Again, partnering with the Center for Women Veterans, we take their feedback. At this time, there's no indication as to why they are not enrolled, but we can tell you that we expect an increase in the enrollment as a result of the instructor-led and web-based WHTT.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back.
Thank the ranking member for his questions, and I'll recognize Chairwoman Brownlee for her questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question goes to Mr. Manziel. First, I want to actually congratulate Congress and congratulate you on the Women's Health Transition Training Program. It's an important one and certainly an important first step for our women veterans. I want to hear from you what percentage of transitioning servicewomen take this training, and why does it remain an optional and virtual training? I mean, I know with COVID, virtual was practically mandatory, but most importantly, how many women are utilizing this, and why is it not mandatory like so many of the other programs for other veterans?
Thank you for that question. I can't elaborate on exactly how many women are taking it, but I can tell you that as the women service members transition through the TAP process, they receive a lot of information on health matters. Particularly, it starts with the VA benefits and services brief that they go through during the pre-separation counseling process.
Sir, I was just asking about why is the program not mandatory?
Yes, ma'am, and I'm coming to that, ma'am. And so what happens is there's alternate pathways and multiple levels of assistance, which allow service members to be in control of their transition processes and utilize the programs, resources, and information that fits their needs. So it's not necessary for it to be mandatory, because if a service member needs it, as determined by the service member, as determined by consult with the service member and the TAP counselor, or as determined at the capstone process, then the service member will get the training. So if they need it, they get it. And that's really the bottom line. If a transitioning female service member desires the training, or the self-assessment indicates they need it, then they will get it.
I strongly disagree with you on that, honestly, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but it should be a mandatory program where women veterans are gathered together and in a safe place to talk about some of their issues, and to also understand that the Department of Defense and their military branch understands what their issues might be, and a recognition of that. So I strongly disagree, and I personally will try to work hard to make this program mandatory. I also, Mr. Mansell, looking at the DoD website, I just lost it on my laptop here. There is, going to the DoD TAP portion on your website, there is no mention of this program whatsoever. So, I think one of the issues is that women don't even know about the program and have access to the program. And certainly if it's not mandatory, they might miss it altogether. Why wouldn't you put anything on the website in relationship to this program?
Ma'am, that's a great point. And I've looked at the website. I didn't specifically look at it for that, but if in fact, based on what you've said, we certainly need to do that. We need to add that information to the website, and we will. But if I could comment further too, service members are made aware of all of the benefits and training that are available to them as they go through the transition process. They even get information on networking opportunities with other service members and veterans that have already gone through the process as well. That enables them to come together and network in the women's health training, transition training course, or as they go through transition. So even though it's not a mandatory, it is optional. And if a service member desires to do so, she has the ability to do that. But ma'am, if in fact you wanted to be mandatory, I would certainly be glad to continue to work with you toward that end.
Well, I know we make a lot of these programs mandatory for all veterans because we understand the importance that they understand, what is available to them and what their options are. And as a consequence, I think, women being the fastest growing cohort within the military, we want to keep them in the military, but when they leave, they need to know what options are there. And many of them leave in a traumatic basis, probably at least 1 in 4, and that's an undercount because so many women don't even recognize the harassment or assault that occurred to them while they served in the military. So, Ms. Devlin, on the in your responsibility around this, there are adjusting to civilian life is difficult for all of our veterans. Too often it results in homelessness. I think you mentioned that in your opening
Street Northeast.
And the problem is really compounded when homeless veterans have children to care for. I have a bill, the Homeless Veterans with Children Reintegration Act, that would require the Department of Labor to prioritize homeless veterans with children for its homeless veteran reintegration programs. Can you talk a little bit about hopefully you're aware of the bill. I certainly would like to know if you support it, and if you could talk a little bit about, the important connections between transition to civilian life and homelessness among veterans, and particularly those caring for children.
Thank you for the question. We do support it. We support any services that will help service women navigate that challenging transition. And if they are homeless, of course, that presents a whole bunch of additional obstacles that they have to overcome. Our Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program already has specialized services for women and for women with families. And we, in some cases, award grants specifically to organizations that tailor their services to women or women with families. And we're happy to work with you on technical assistance for the bill.
Thank you. I see that my time is up, so I apologize, Mr. Chairman. As an invited guest, I shouldn't go.
Quite all right. Quite all right, Chair Brownlee. Appreciate you. I'd now like to recognize my good friend from Arizona, Mr. Gallego, for questions from the car.
Yes, I apologize. It is what it is. One of the things that I think is really important is data. And being in the military myself, for many years, I know there's a lot of data that's collected about me, but it's not necessarily used to optimize what I would call best outcomes, especially for our service members and transitioning from the Department of Defense to the veteran life to just in general civilian life. So I guess my general.
Ruben, you broke up there for a minute. Can you hear us? Let's give him a few seconds here.
there?
We can hear you, Ruben. You might want to
Okay,
go back about 15, 20 seconds. Uh-oh. Let's give Ruben.
I yield back my time. I'll take this from the office.
Okay, sounds good. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
I don't think there are any other members with questions. So we'll go ahead and conclude our first panel. I want to thank our witnesses for the first panel. And we'll begin our second and final panel, consisting of representatives from veteran service organizations and nonprofit organizations that are on the ground walking women veterans through the toughest of transition challenges. I'd like to highlight that the majority of our witnesses on this panel are here with us for the first time. First, can we transition over to, here we go, starting to see some of our witnesses for the second panel. Hopefully they're all on. I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for your time here today and your dedication to our nation's heroes. First, we have Ms. Jody Grenier, Chief Executive Officer of the Foundation for Women Warriors. Nice to see you. For Lady Veterans Connect, we're joined by Ms. Phyllis Abbott, Founder and Executive Director. Hello. Though not for their first time, but always grateful for their participation, we have Captain Lori Manning, Director of Government Relations for the Servicewomen's Action Network. Hello there. And last but certainly not least, we have Ms. Ginger Miller, President and CEO of Women Veterans Interactive. Thank you all so much for joining the subcommittee today. With that, I'd now like to recognize Ms. Jody Grenier for 5 minutes.
Chairman Levin, Ranking Member Moore, distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting Foundation for Women Warriors to testify today. Foundation for Women Warriors is a 101-year-old nonprofit organization dedicated to serving women veterans and their families by empowering their future through programs that enhance their personal and economic well-being. Women are serving in the military in record numbers and represent 10% of the veteran population. As women increasingly serve our country, they face a myriad of issues when they decide to end their service. As such, women veterans, as compared to their male counterparts, are the fastest growing segment of homeless veterans. They have a higher unemployment rate, lower median income, and are more likely to live below the poverty line. They are also more likely to be single parents, yet are less likely to have the same support network. The four main areas that impact successful transition from our perspective include access to gender-specific healthcare and programs, limited financial planning, limited job readiness, and the transition assistance program's inability to effectively collaborate with organizations that meet needs and fill gaps for veterans. Overwhelmingly, women service members and veterans report that there's still little information shared on how to apply for VA healthcare and disability benefits during TAP, and that they receive either little or no information on women's specific healthcare. While the VA recently launched the Women's Health Transition Training course, it is online and it has not been widely advertised, and it is listed as optional. Online programming often fails to answer any specific questions a service member may have, and service members report that if a course is not mandatory, military commands often will not allow service members to attend. Service women can be better served through comprehensive financial education and planning that addresses the fiscal realities and challenges of transitions. With nearly 40% of service women as mothers and 11% as single parents, women veterans face inordinate financial challenges after service. TAP fails to express the reality of family budget planning, childcare costs, insurance, and pay gaps after service. In addition to the limited financial education and planning, transitioning service members face delays in benefit payments, making budgeting a challenge. Veterans report that they're surprised by the delay of their final paycheck, as well as post 9/11 veteran GI Bill benefits. This only compounds as women veterans in all age cohorts earn significantly less than male veterans and suffer from higher unemployment rates than their male counterparts. Our veterans report that TAP employment curriculum is geared towards government and DoD contracting jobs and offer little insight on ways to gain employment in the private sector, failing to highlight employers across broad industries. Women veterans also specifically report not feeling comfortable asking questions that pertain to childcare, benefits, or negotiating salary in these predominantly male classes. While we understand that no one program meets all the needs, TAP offers little information on other veteran serving organizations that are able and ready to meet the gaps of transitioning service members. Instead, many military installations have created a pay-to-play system in which they've created an additional cost to provide transitioning service members with much needed services. In other cases, accessing service members becomes so bureaucratic, lean nonprofits forgo the burden. Foundation for Women Warriors presents the following recommendations for your consideration. We would like to see expanded the Women's Health Transition Training course to ensure all transitioning women have access to gender-specific resources and make this mandatory. Ideally, this should also be offered in person. Develop strategic collaboration between the Department of Labor, TAP, DoD, and veteran organizations to address and remove gaps in services. Reduce the financial vulnerabilities and by increasing funding and access to effective and comprehensive financial literacy within the active duty military. Research the childcare needs of veterans to determine the feasibility of a GI Bill childcare stipend to provide affordable and quality childcare. In closing, I want to thank the subcommittee for your commitment to improving the transition of our nation's women's veterans to civilian life. We're eager to assist you in your efforts in any way we can, and I'm available to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grenier. Next, I recognize Ms. Abbott for 5 minutes. And Ms. Abbott, please unmute yourself. It happens every time. Once a Zoom meeting. Go
Okay.
right ahead, Ms. Abbott.
Thank you, Chairman Levine and Ranking Member Moore and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me to present my recommendations for improvements that would be made to ease the transition of women veterans from the military back into civilian life. Women veterans exiting the military often experience military sexual trauma or suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome. They rarely have discussed this while they're in the military. And when they exit the military, they attempt to resume relationships with family members and keep the trauma hidden, which leads to drugs, alcohol, broken relationships, and homelessness. To prevent these issues from happening, I believe it would be helpful to have an exit recruiter to begin working with the women prior to exiting the military and hand it off to a local VA sponsor for a minimum of 3 months afterwards. The local VA sponsor will welcome them, get them a tour of the facility, assist them in getting connected to the medical, mental, housing, employment, legal, marriage counseling, educational information, as well as connection to local VSOs, the women veterans coordinators at the state level, and organizations that provide programs for women veterans, such as Lady Veterans Connect. I am aware that some of the information is currently provided. However, women are often mothers and wives and are often focused on transitioning the family as well as themselves from the military. Therefore, may overlook this important information that's available to them and put the welfare of others before themselves without considering issues that they may encounter. There also needs to be more to educate the public that women served in the military and should be recognized the same as male veterans. Women veterans do not tend to identify as veterans. Therefore, rather than asking, "Are you a veteran?" the question should be, "Did you serve in the military?" VA research has found women veterans are more than twice as likely to become homeless as women who did not serve in the military. Women veterans are the fastest growing segment of the homeless population, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs. This is totally unacceptable. Once women veterans become homeless, they are difficult to reach as they blend into the homeless population and do not identify as veterans. To combat these issues, Lady Veterans Connect will soon implement a Battle Buddy program to connect women veterans together, provide them with support from other veterans and programs to be sustainable, and connect them to Battle Buddy. This will provide a support system for women veterans. Lady Veteran Connect also recognizes that younger women veterans often have small children. Therefore, we are focusing on building cottages where women veterans can live with their small children while participating in our programs. Lady Veterans Connect desires to make our home in Winchester a place where women exiting the military who do not have a job or home to go to can come to our home and transition from there. Lady Veterans Connect isn't satisfied with only reacting to women veterans' homelessness. We are committed to being proactive in preventing homelessness from happening. We will make ourselves available to the Committee on Veterans Affairs to address and resolve these issues. Chairman Levine and Ranking Members Moore and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to share, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott. Captain Manning, I now recognize you for 5 minutes. Oh, and unmute yourself, Ms. Manning. Sorry. There you go. Thank you, Captain.
Chairman Levine, Ranking Member Moore, Chairman Brownlee, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. On behalf of the Servicewomen's Action Network, I thank you for the opportunity to share our views regarding the topic of today's hearing. The departments and agencies represented here today have made welcome improvements in the TAP program by tailoring it more to individual needs and desires of separating and retiring service members. But more can be done to ease some of the added barriers many women face as they transition. Veterans completing TAP ought to feel empowered that they can bring capabilities and experience to civilian life that will be seen and valued by employers, by civilian education and training institutions, and by their fellow citizens. But too often, women veterans are overlooked, invisible, because many members of the public and even government employees who work with veterans simply picture veterans as males and males as veterans. Women veterans need visibility, not erasure. And this could start by removing their erasure from the Department of Veterans Affairs motto, to care for him whom has borne the battle, his widow, and his orphan. I'm sure it was not President Lincoln's intent to exclude any veterans or family members from this statement in his second inaugural address. So let's stop clinging to a few pronouns and adapt the motto to convey President Lincoln's intent to the military as it is today. Congress and the Department of Veterans Affairs through the Veterans Health Administration have done much to make the health benefits they've earned more widely available to survivors of military sexual trauma, even those with less than honorable discharges. But as two reports released in August from the VA's Office of the Inspector General show, the Veterans Benefits Administration has not done well by these same veterans. The IG reports found that 57% of rejected claims for MST in the last quarter of FY 2019 were incorrectly denied because VBA had not corrected the problems found in an earlier 2018 IG report. Additionally, many MST survivors are quickly separated from the service without full access to TAP, and too often with discharges under less than honorable conditions, making them ineligible for many educational, financial, and employment benefits. There is a renewed emphasis on outreach to survivors to make them aware that they can apply to their service for a discharge upgrade, but few are aware that they can apply directly to VBA to establish their eligibility for benefits despite their less than honorable status. And as part of processing these requests, that VBA will initiate a character of discharge determination or COD determination. If granted, that veteran will become eligible for additional veterans without a discharge upgrade from their service, which can take a lot of time. Now, the scanty statistics I found on this process indicate that VBA seldom decides in the victim's favor. But I think with help from Congress, COD determinations can become useful for MST survivors and other deserving veterans. This would require Congress and the Department of Veterans Affairs to clarify vague statutory and regulatory language, to set up criteria to standardize the COD determination process across all VBA regional offices, and to provide outreach to the relevant MST survivors and others about COD determinations. We at SWAN strongly support these actions. They would help deserving veterans build themselves better futures. Mr. Chairman, let me say how deeply I appreciate the opportunity to offer SWAN's views on these matters that are so important to so many veterans. Thank you for your time and attention.
Well, thank you, Captain Manning. Lastly, I recognize Ms. Miller for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Chairman Levine, Ranking Member Moore, and members of the subcommittee, as the founder and president of Women Veterans Interactive, I am grateful to present my testimony regarding a whole of government approach in support of servicewomen, destined and determined to make a difference and positively impact the lives of women veterans through my nonprofit over the last 10 years. I have also served on every level of government in a leadership capacity. Some of my most notable appointments include chairwoman of the Prince George's County Commission for Veterans, member of the Maryland Commission for Women, member of the Maryland Caregivers Coordinating Council, and member of the Women Veterans, the Department of Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee on Minority Veterans. Of the 5 terms I served on the Committee for Minority Veterans, my last 2 terms I served as a chairwoman. Most recently, in September of 2021, President Joe Biden has appointed me to the USO Board of Governors. While I'm not here today representing any federal, state, or county agencies, I feel it is essential for the subcommittee to understand my experience as a woman veteran, my commitment to women veterans, and my level of expertise. Women Veterans Interactive is a national membership nonprofit organization that has supported servicewomen for over 10 years. WVI is a solutions-driven nonprofit organization focused on outreach and engagement. We enable and empower women veterans with the tools and resources needed to achieve post-military success. We accomplish our mission by operating on 3 pillars: wellness, transition, and safety. For today's hearing, we'll focus on our program, the Women Veterans Transition Space, which assists service women transition from service to success by connecting them to networking and career opportunities driven by our partners and industry experts. In addition, we provide tailored services to meet their individual needs. Our services also provide programs that assist these women veterans with food insecurities, housing stability, peer-to-peer support, benefits, education, financial wellness, and more. Transitioning out of the military is a daunting task for women veterans. As reported by several women veterans that have come to WVI for services and those who have participated in our Women Veterans Transition Space program, TAP is somewhat helpful, but it's not enough. Within the last 60 days, there's a common theme that has been increasing among transitioning and newly transitioned service women who are feeling that they are in a weird space. Our brave sisters in service face a new battlefield at home, a battlefield of the mind, body, and spirit. A new battlefield that they should never find themselves in, and unfortunately, a battle that they are losing. These women are exhausted, mentally and physically depleted, and in need of a lifeline. It is terrifying to hear a woman veteran in one of our programs who has served for 21 years to express that she is in a weird space. These women are not okay. This weird space that these women find themselves in is filled with depression, isolation, and everything that we could not imagine as someone should face when they leave the military. More important than the weird space is how and why this weird space exists. This weird space exists because we are a country reacting to the issues that call for proactive solutions and preventive measures. And thus, we are missing the mark at the expense of the women who have served and sacrificed for this country. Elimination of the weird space can only be accomplished by a joint effort that includes the highest level of government to boots on the ground and every level in between. Understanding is half the battle. Knowing that each and every one of us here today have a role to play, we can complete this mission. Gone are the days that women veteran nonprofit organizations go into the firefight to save our sister in arms on the transition battlefield without the proper gear and support. As the president and CEO of Women Veterans Interactive, I am calling upon America to stand up for us the way we have stood up for you. Thousands of us went to war, left our most precious possessions behind, who are our children, and some who will never recognize us as their mothers when we return because they were too young to remember us when we left. This country has come together in full force to support military spouses and caregivers, and now it's time for us to come to support the women who have served and sacrificed for this country. I have 2 recommendations here today. The first recommendation is that the committee urged President Biden to establish a House-led Women Veterans Task Force. My second recommendation is that this committee also recommends to DOD to start conversations with nonprofit organizations who are out here supporting women veterans, because we need to get to these women before they transition. Once they transition out, it's too late. We're knocking on the doors of DOD to let us in with the programs that have been effective, the programs that are supporting these women that are a lifeline for them. With that being said, I'm done. I'm really appreciative for this opportunity, Chairman Levine and everyone here today, to testify, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Miller, for that powerful testimony. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions. Ms. Grenier, I appreciated your recommendations for how we can improve experiences for transitioning servicewomen. One of your recommendations is to provide comprehensive financial literacy education while service members are still on active duty. Could you please describe some of the financial challenges that transitioning servicewomen face and how these challenges are unique to members of the military as opposed to civilians?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chairman Levin. So here at Foundation for Women Warriors, we provide emergency financial assistance, and this comes in the form of rent, utilities, and childcare assistance. For those that serve in the military, childcare on base is subsidized. It's based on your rank and how much you make. That cost significantly increases as any service member with children transitions to the civilian sector. Here in California, that cost has increased upwards of 40%. I think the last time that we testified, the cost, weekly cost for childcare was $211 a week. Now it's over $300. That's just one of the financial challenges. Most of the women that we serve have put their education on hold. So they come out with a trifecta of needing to attain a college education, deal with the rising costs of housing, and then having to find a job. And a lot of these jobs do not recognize military service as a replacement for a college education. And so they're started off at a much lower earning rate, not to mention a wage pay gap for women. So you have childcare is a huge financial burden, as is trying to find comparable work. And of course, the increased costs that all veterans face.
Thank you very much for that. Do you have specific recommendations for what the financial literacy education that you suggested should entail?
Yes. So here at Foundation for Women Warriors, what we do is, as women veterans come to us for financial help, we ensure that they're provided online access to a suite of financial programs. We work with Prudential to provide budgeting from a very down-to-earth, ground level expectation of here's what you can expect to pay in childcare. Here's what you can expect to pay in rent. And then also going a little bit deeper as to considering how do you save for retirement. I say that within the military, it should be offered at milestones. When you pick up rank, when you go to have a family, when you expand your family, when you move to a new duty station. Just for those coming from Camp Lejeune to Camp Pendleton, the cost increase is so significant that a lot of families are not prepared for the California sunshine tax that we have here. So I think milestones within a military career is a great place to begin this financial literacy training.
Well, thank you very much for that, Ms. Grenier. Captain Manning, let me turn to you. I appreciated your testimony regarding the need to focus on reevaluating other than honorable discharges for women veterans. Could you walk us through the issues that a woman veteran may face if they receive an other than honorable discharge, and specifically how that discharge might permeate through their lives in terms of their ability to effectively transition into civilian life? And you want to take yourself off mute, Captain, sorry.
There.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's, could you sort of re-ask me that question?
Sure. So OTH discharges for women veterans. So could you walk us through the issues that a women veteran may face if they get an OTH discharge, and how that discharge could permeate through their lives in terms of their ability to effectively transition?
Yes, thank you. Well, the first thing is loss of GI Bill. GI Bill requires an honorable discharge, and there's nobody that can fix that except Congress someday, perhaps. Next, we heard about many of the kinds of programs that the Department of Labor offers. There are also special programs from the Small Business Administration, from OPM, very special tracks that you can take through the TAP program. Those require, for the most part, honorable discharges or a decision by VBA that people, well, honorable under general conditions. So, but the OTH means that the person who has that discharge is not eligible for those programs unless they either get their discharge upgraded or VBA uses that character of discharge determination. And most people have never even heard of it. I mean, I worked in this space for years before I knew that was even an option. And of course, there are other educational benefits besides GI Bill, and those are all gone. About all they can get is some health benefits specifically related to PTSD or things like that. And some services are much quicker to give other than honorable discharges than other services, the Marine Corps in particular. And often women who make complaints of sexual assault are retaliated against and their reputations are ruined. And sometimes they act out in ways that causes trouble with the command, and they find themselves quickly out the door without even the full year of TAP that's available to people that leave under normal conditions.
Thank you for all that. And I know I'm running over, but if my colleagues will indulge me, just want to get my last couple of questions in. Ms. Miller, I wanted to thank you for your written testimony, and certainly appreciate your commitment to helping your fellow women veterans who struggle with homelessness and food insecurity in particular. Could you please describe some of the factors that women veterans face that might make them uniquely at risk for housing or food insecurity, and walk us through what the cycle may look like for a servicewoman who transitions out of the military and winds up into homelessness?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question, Chairman Levin. There is no E on your
it's
last
okay.
name.
It happens all the time. If my wife were here, she would definitely claim that they get it wrong all the time, but I appreciate it.
Okay, so absolutely, as experienced homelessness myself as a woman veteran, it's a cycle that we go through. It's something that should not happen. We are unaware that it's happening when it's happening, but it happens. The way we deal with women veterans who have food insecurities and homelessness at Women Veterans Interactive, we have our program Operation Safety Net, which is a no wrong door approach. The biggest problem is women are afraid to ask for help. I got an email yesterday that I'm going to read really quick that will surmise your question. I'm a single mother to a 3-year-old girl and an almost 2-month-old baby boy. In February, I separated out of the military for 5 years. I had plans and backup plans that fell through, so I've been living off of savings, but that money has now run out and I'm behind on a few bills listed below. Until my GI Bill payments begin in December, my mortgage is currently in forbearance and I'm receiving SNAP and WIC and food and baby formula. I'm also waiting to hear back about my disability claim, but of course, there's no telling when that's going to take place. The problem is this: women veterans are afraid to ask for help. This woman stated in this email that the military teaches us to push through. and you leave out the military with that same type of mentality. Okay, you're a woman veteran, you're tough, push through. But we have to let these women know, you don't have to be tough. You don't have to push through. There is help available for you. Don't wait. This woman, her lights were cut off. She has 2 small children. Don't wait until your lights are cut off. You know, we have to bridge that that gap and give them that safe overpass before they fall into that weird space. And we can only do that by creating a whole government approach that is going to support women veterans, that include the nonprofits that you see here today, because we are the boots on the ground that are delivering these needed services.
And last question, I guess, as a follow-up is, can you elaborate on how the federal agencies can coordinate to make sure that that happens, to make sure that no servicewoman transitions into a situation where they don't have enough food or don't have a place to live?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to commend all of the federal agencies that are here today. They're doing a great job, but they can do an even better job if they sign those MOAs and MOUs with women veteran service organizations. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. We are your boots on the grounds. We're the eyes and ears. These women are getting into the vehicles with us, but we're not equipped. You know, we're not going to not put them in the vehicle. We're going to do the best we can. I heard Ms. Devlin mention that, you know, you have some programs that support women veterans and women, you know, with children who are experiencing homelessness. You know, open that up to us specifically. Train us up so we can deliver these services. We're here, but we're here and we're not equipped.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I hear you loud and clear, and want to thank you all for answering the questions. Want to turn now to the ranking member for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Abbott, initially, I want to ask, I guess, first question for you, if you don't mind. In your testimony, you mentioned the need for a VA sponsor to help greet women veterans during their first visit to the VA Medical Center and provide information on VA benefits and care. How would you propose the VA administer a program like this? And who do you believe were qualified to be the VA sponsors?
I believe that it would be helpful if the women veterans coordinator for each VA hospital would be the leader in initiating this program. They're the ones that are initially providing this support when they approach the VA. So if they were connected with the Department of Defense, as the women are exiting the military, then they could work a program out where there's a warm handover, and the program would exist where they could connect and just make a smooth transition where there's not a gap that the women veterans come out of the military and they're left on their own for a period of time before they ever reach out to the VA, where that support and a marriage between the two exist. Then there would be a smooth handoff and we wouldn't have that gap to where women are struggling, are becoming homeless, or experiencing trauma in their homes.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the warm handoff, that sounds like a solid idea. I've been to the VA, you know, I'm fairly new in this job, but I could see where that'd be intimidating for a veteran, maybe a female veteran the first time making a visit. It'd be nice to have somebody to kind of help them through the process. So I find that pretty interesting. Ms. Grenier, I have a question for you now. In your research on post-military life, do you see a lot of women veterans utilizing the Department of Labor and the American Job Centers? And if not, why do you think that is?
Thank you so much, Ranking Member Moore. No, we do not see a large percentage of women veterans using the Department of Labor services. A lot of these women don't necessarily look towards the Department of Labor and the various government programs for a number of reasons. One, they don't necessarily feel comfortable if the program is offered after hours, or if their military commands won't let them go, then they won't have access to it. And a lot of times these organizations promote mainly government jobs, creating resumes based on USA Jobs. And a lot of these women want jobs that offer more flexibility. They have families, they want to be able to provide for their family and not necessarily go back into an environment or into a job that is in a male dominant environment.
Thank you, Ms. Grenier. I appreciate that. And with that, Chairman, I'll yield back.
Well, I thank the ranking member for his questions, and now I'd like to recognize Chairwoman Brownlee for her questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I think the chairman said in his opening remarks today that some of you, if not all of you, is the first time testifying in front of a committee in Congress. And I just want to say that you all did a spectacular job. And I find each and every one of your testimonies to be very compelling. I read every word of it before today and appreciate it so very, very much. Ms. Grenier, you're bringing up the fact of the cost of childcare and good jobs and having some financial acuity, how important that is, and transitioning from one base to another base where the cost of living is so expensive can be such a huge adjustment. I thank you. I thank you for that. Ms. Abbott, you talked about homelessness and the need for an exit recruiter and a VA sponsor that Mr. Moore was just inquiring about. Very, very helpful suggestions. Captain Manny, you outlined in your testimony this issue about receiving other than an honorable discharge, and the fact that the IG report found that 57% of rejected claims for MST in the last quarter of fiscal year 2019 were incorrectly denied. 57%, more than half. And the consequences are so severe on women. And so you've made very, very specific suggestions that I'm taking to heart. I'll do my investigation to see if there's any legislation out there, but if there's not, you can certainly count on me to putting some of these suggestions into legislation. It is just mind-boggling to me that more than half of these claims have been incorrectly denied, and they have been because of lack of clarity and so forth. So, Ms. Miller, your testimony I found was extremely compelling. Your two suggestions at the end, again, I take to heart and I think are good suggestions, and I want to look into them more clearly. I don't know if any of you know, but in addition to chairing the subcommittee on health, I also created the Women's Veterans Task Force in the 116th Congress and have been working on these issues, and have had the ability to really travel across the country and talk to women who are in the military and women veterans who have left the military. It's really important to talk to women in the military to understand what their issues are so that we can serve them better once they exit the military. And I think the way you described this weird space is extraordinarily helpful. And you talk about, understanding is half the battle. And I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, once establishing this task force, so many women veterans came forward and talked about their experiences, and many times in tears. So I've had, similar experiences to you, and the fact that for the first time they felt heard and felt seen as equal members of the military and making equal contributions. And it is so important that this collaborative between the VA, defense, and labor really understand what these women are going through. And if some women come through and have had a wonderful experience, so be it. But we need to be prepared for those who are, feeling despair and depression and isolation and anxiety and experiencing unemployment and homelessness and withdrawal. These are real things that we need to address. And I just cannot thank you enough for all of you and your testimony. It's been really helpful to me and sort of solidifying some of the things that we really need to do to improve TAP for our women veterans. I think we need to go another step further and we need to look at underrepresented veterans and some of their issues that men or women, that might be extremely different. But when you start looking at women of color, their issues become many times even more severe. And I think, the second recommendation that you made, Ms. Miller, in terms of looking at the MOU and making VSOs that all of you represent here, making them part of an equal partner in this team is critically important, because as you said, you are the boots on the ground. You are the ones that are reaching out to veterans. You are the ones that need to be extraordinarily knowledgeable about all of these programs and what is available so that you can be a communicator for all of us, making that connection, knowing what is out there. I mean, even when we talk about dishonorable discharges and the ability to change that, the captain said she's been in the space for several years and didn't even know that program existed. This is a huge problem. And if we can solve that communication and that knowledge base, is half the problem. Because I know women veterans, when they come out, they're eager for information. They want the information. They're ready to put their families back together again and, get a good job and figure it out and provide a home and love their children and take care of, their military spouse, if that is the situation. So they just need to know, really what the information is. So again, I think this suggestion is a really good one. I think the president coming up with a task force is a very good one. I hound the secretary every time I see him that we need to change the motto of the VA to say, all who have borne the battle, as opposed to he who has borne the battle, because that to me is the first step in a cultural change that needs to take place. So I'm overwhelmed with all of you and your testimony, and I am extraordinarily grateful for that. I hope the folks on the first panel were listening, and because I plan on following up on all of this, and I extend an invitation for each and every one of you to reach out to me, that I would love to drill down on these issues with you further, so that we can really get some elbow grease into this and really make some changes that I think are needed. And you've all said that the changes have been good and people are, but we've got a lot more to do. And the reality is that women are leaving the military because of bad experiences. We have an all volunteer military team here. We want women to stay in the military. It's to our advantage and to our national defense to keep them in the military. But we've got to solve these issues about their experiences that are happening. If we could get rid of MST in the military, then we wouldn't have to have such severe programming on the other side. But that hasn't happened yet. So we got to get after it. And I would love to talk to each and every one of you in greater detail. Mr. Chairman, I apologize for going again. I'm an invited guest and way over my time, but as you can tell, this is an issue that I'm quite passionate on, and I appreciate the time. And with that, I yield back.
Well, not only is there no need to apologize, but I just want to associate myself with many of the comments you made. And while you were speaking, I was already having a little sidebar with our HVAC staff here about another hearing to address some of the specific issues that you raised. So let's continue to discuss offline, and I just thank you for your continued great leadership in this area. With that, I see my good friend from Maryland, Representative Trone, and I'd like to recognize you now for your questions.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. And like yourself, I certainly share Chairwoman Brownlee's enthusiasm. It's certainly contagious and much appreciated. As a country, we've certainly come a long way since the days where we limited women's military service to simply women's work. Today, America's best and brightest women have the opportunity to serve right alongside their male counterparts. But despite this progress, women continue to face adversity both during and after their service. My district alone has 40,000 vets, 15% of which are women. So I'll get straight into a couple of questions. In 2017, the VA study showed a clear association between PTSD and eating disorders. And those have the highest, in the eating disorders, have the highest mortality rate of any mental illness. So of all the mental illness we face in our country, eating disorders are most connected to that. So let's start with Ms. Grenier. And I know you're all new on the job and really, beginning to sink your teeth into it. So let's talk about what mental health services are available for the VA women struggling with eating disorders.
Thank you, Congressman Trone. I am not a subject matter expert on eating disorders or the VA services for eating disorders. I will say within the military, there is pressure to be a certain weight, to keep within your weight standards, and that has encouraged a lot of unhealthy eating. We refer our veterans to various programs, and we see a lot of women veterans don't necessarily want to go to the VA for some of their mental health. And we partner with other veteran organizations that provide that. For instance, we work with Women Veterans on Point out of Los Angeles and Headstrong Project. I'll give back my time. I appreciate the question, but I'm not the subject matter expert in that area.
Well, if you could get back to our office with any information you can find out and connect this big mental health issue with eating disorders. And second question, additional services. Women have experienced sexual harassment. We talked a lot about that, or assault, and they're transitioning back to civilian life. After transitioning back to civilian life, leaving the military, that trauma of that assault can be very debilitating, causing women to struggle at work and their personal life. Let's talk, if you could, Ms. Grenier, again, talk about resource the VA could further support women reintegrating, into our workforce.
I think some of the programs around mental health or some of these support groups within the VA are helpful. However, ensuring that they're gender specific. A lot of times I've heard reports that there's co-ed MST groups, and women just do not want to be in an MST support group with other where it's co-ed. They want to be together. We found that putting women together because they serve with so few other women, even though there's an increasing number of women serving in the military, that when they transition out of the military, they don't fall into some sort of natural sisterhood, but they have to actually seek each other out. So in terms of the MST, services at the VA, I think that they are available. There should be improvements to ensure that these MST groups are, offer both co-ed and gender specific. And I think each state offers different programs, so making it more widespread would be of the benefit of our women veteran community.
That's great. I'd ask the panel and also our chairman, as we think about funding and how to direct the VA to do things in the best possible manner to help our women vets. I'm on the appropriations committee also for VA. So if the chairman and others have language that we like inserted into the appropriations bills under VA, we could help on that. And we're very happy to do so. With that, I yield back to the chairman. Thank you.
Well, I certainly thank you for that, Representative Trone, and our team will follow up with regard to that text. Next, I'd like to recognize my friend from Arizona. I see both a University of Arizona and Arizona State University helmet behind you. My wife is an Arizona Wildcat. If she saw that, she would say you're going to have to pick sides there. But Representative Gallego, the floor is yours, my friend.
Mr. Chairman, I'm very bipartisan. That's how I got elected as young as I am. I want to jump to a couple of questions. First question is for Ms. Grenier. Ms. Grenier, in your testimony, you mentioned that in California, 60% of the state's women veterans reported experiencing some form of housing instability, and also described that as partially due to higher unemployment rate, lower median income, or just single parenthood. Can you walk us through what, in your opinion, are the most effective ways you can help address this issue before women become homeless? So right before that last step when they're on the street.
Our organization, we're on the forefront of preventing homelessness, and we make ourselves available to women veterans through a myriad of ways. We're listed with 211. We partner with, the local VAs know that we exist. We're also internal to Facebook groups and whatnot. What we find to be the most successful way of ensuring that women veterans don't fall into homelessness is by providing emergency financial rent stipends along the side of ensuring that they have access to financial literacy. Here at our organization, in order to receive a financial rent stipend that then keeps a woman veteran and her child stable and housed, they have to complete a financial literacy, a year-long budget divided by monthly costs. And we work with them on a quarterly basis to ensure that their behavior improves over time. We find that keeping women veterans and their families in their homes and not intervening at that critical moment allows them stability over a longer amount of time, rather than trying to intervene after they've become homeless and put them back in a home. We have much more success that way.
Right, and so you are seeing success with the financial education piece to basically get them out of the month-to-month instability when it comes to their income that maybe cause them to lose a home or eviction and things of that nature.
Absolutely. Our coordinators work with our women veterans to determine, are they making enough money but just spending it not as wisely as they should? Or are there areas where they can cut back, or do we need to provide other resources so that they can attain an advancement in employment, which then equals higher earnings?
Great. Question for Ms. Phyllis Abbott. Ms. Abbott, you also discussed how women veterans experience homelessness in your testimony. I'm interested to hear any recommendation you may have for how VA and its federal partners can increase outreach to identify and serve homeless veterans. Can you also share any recommendations you have for how homelessness or risk of housing instability can be prevented while women are still serving in the military?
I think that it has a lot to do with preparing them before they exit the military. In the military, everything is provided for them. So when they're ready to come out of the military, they have to learn how to prepare a budget, how to plan for housing, cars, and utilities and expenditures that they're going to have. And if we have a program developed where that is required financial literacy training, I know that some of the women are focused on getting out, taking care of their families to get them out. But if they can have that program, that would be great. With us and our program, when they have reached the homeless stage and they come into our program, once we help them get a job while they're still participating, they pay 30% toward their housing there. And 20% of it goes toward their support there. 10% goes into a savings account. So when they exit the program, they have a savings in place and they've learned how to budget their income. and that can help prevent them from becoming homeless again, and to focus on improving their careers.
Great. These sounds like great programs, and I really hope to see them succeed and expand. Arizona, it has a growing homeless population or unhoused population, and unfortunately, a portion of that is growing are our women veterans, and we'll continue to work obviously to change that. But prevention is probably the best policy when it comes to all this. So thank you again, both of you, for your time and for our other panelists. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
I thank my good friend from Arizona, and I also thank all of our witnesses. And in particular, I'm grateful to the witnesses from the first panel for sticking around and listening to our experts on the second panel. I think just about all of you did that. If we were all in a room together, I would have encouraged you now to get together and to have some conversations between our national service organizations and our agencies that might continue to build upon what we've heard today. But you all can still do that. We're not in the same room physically, but you all can still do that, and I hope you do. And I'm very, very grateful just to hear from everybody helping our servicewomen and women veterans through transition, and really grateful for your expertise and your hard work. And I know this is just one of many discussions we're going to be having about this topic in the coming months and years, and also just want to reiterate my thanks for Chairwoman Brownlee joining us and providing her expertise in this area. So if there are no further questions, we can bring this hearing to a close. I again thank our witnesses for joining us today. All members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include additional materials. And without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.